to turn over to John, JB, because I know that for many families there is this transition where phones were working great and now phones have got a bit complicated. People might not take them with them, and what to do next. And I remember talking to a gentleman and his wife. She had her own life, she had her own friends, but what she didn't have so much now was spatial skills. And what they came up with was that every morning they actually safety pinned one of the ear tags that you use to hold your keys onto her bra. And so that they'd be able to know that, if she did get lost. And he said, I'm sure there's a better way. And Sean, I think, I know that you've come into the area of technology from your experience as a carer, and I'm just wondering if you'd like to sort of, talk us through, your light bulb moments where you were going, in terms of this thing of, enabling people to move, to be around that we heard about from Sharon Crichton when she was doing our safer walking with us in an earlier hui. Um, that there must be a better way. And what was it that was going on for you?
Yeah, thank you. You're 100% right. And Holly, you brought up a really good point. There's no one device really that meets every need, and the needs change. So it might meet a need early on in the journey, but as time goes on, the need changes. So that technology or that set of technology that people start out with, that's going to change. So my experience was with my wife, who was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. We knew she had something wrong at about 58, but she was diagnosed at around about 60. And many will relate to this story because it's such a hard thing to diagnose and figure out what's going on. So I looked after her for 5 years at home as a full-time carer, and the service that that came out of that was through my experience with the things that Nikki needed through that time. And I struggled to find things that, like many, the diagnosis sort of sends you into a bit of a spin, a bit of almost a crisis. But so you've got so many things to think about. People are telling you one thing and another. So I was working full time at that stage, and I needed things for myself to know that Nikki was all right. And so the tools that we or that Guardian Support Services came up with were out of that need. And really, we work with families, like Holly was saying. There's a lot of children who are remote from their parents, and their parents, they're still very independent and quite capable of making their own decisions, but in for the peace of mind for the children and the family, it comes by staying connected somehow. And that is through tech. You either go to the place and be with them as much as you can, which a lot of people do, or if they're not able, there has to be some way of staying connected. So the devices that I came up with for Nikki, they helped us do that. And I guess in that sense, it's not totally co-designed because we didn't develop the tools in-house. We found them on the market, and so we came up with a watch. And Holly's right. A watch doesn't suit everybody. Um, and there's many reasons why a watch won't, some people won't accept a watch, and some of those reasons are that, particularly guys, they might have had a watch for 40 years and that's the watch they use, and they know that watch, and it's not just a watch, it's a part of them. So that in that case, a wearable watch that does all the things, helps stay connected and checks on the location and geofencing, and they can all, there's a number of devices out there that can do that. It's not going to work, because they just won't accept it. And the size of the watch, the weight, and all of those things. Um, so in that case, you might choose a pendant. So, and even then, a pendant might not work, because some people, they don't want to. Don't want to look different. They don't want to go out into the public wearing a pendant because it makes them different. And really, they're not. It's the label dementia is a very challenging label. It's challenging for me, and it's challenging for the person with it. I think I prefer cognitive decline or something like that, because we all have dementia at some, to some degree at some point in our life. But, we don't want to be labeled with that. So all of those challenges to enable somebody to, or families um, to live independently, for whānau to stay connected, um, they are challenges. They're difficult. Um, they're difficult things, tools to integrate into somebody's life. Um, and I'm not going to, I was going to show you what we do, or the products we do, but I won't actually, because, if you want to know more, you can jump onto our website and have a look. So, but we do work with families, that's why I call it a service more than a retail store. So we work with families to find the right solution. We give them, time with the products to decide whether it's going to work for them. So, we don't charge a fee for the first month until we know that we've got the right thing for the person. And so we work quite closely, and we stay connected right throughout the process. So we don't have any contracts or anything like that. So if somebody, if they don't get through the trial, then oh well, that's just the way it is. People have to have a tool that's going to work for them.
And I love the way that you're talking about this as a conversation that involves the person at the center of it. So it's not kind
yeah,
of this covert, spy technology, is it? It's about working with the person, about what they feel comfortable with, that fits with, what their preferences, and that this is something that they can see as of benefit.
yeah. No, that is right. There's always the balancing act. There's, how do you keep somebody independent and safe? How do you do that? Because at a certain point in the process, independence is potentially going to be lost because they're not safe. Because they fall into a category that needs more support, and that it always, unless you're looking after themselves like I did, it always means that somebody else is going to be in control of their lives. They're going to stop
Wow.
them from going out. They're going to lock the doors at night and things like that. So at a point, so yeah, it's really difficult. It's really difficult when you're working with families to find that balance, because it's not it's a process. There's nothing
Mm.
firm about it. It's a fluid. So everyone's different.
Yeah, yeah.
You can give
That
somebody a pendant, and a medical alarm, but are they going to push it? Are they ever going to push it? why are they spending money on it if it's, those, all of those things are, yeah.